So let's jump into it then. The relationship between Japan and Australia has been evolving. Some people call it a kind of quasi-alliance. Is that the right characterization? And yeah, tell us a little bit about why the alliance is changing the way it has.
Yeah, sure. Well, maybe to answer that question, we have to define what quasi-alliance means. This is not academic conference, but it's an unavoidable question. And I think one key important element is the existence of the common alliance, which is the United States, of course. And Japan and Australia have strengthened their strategic partnership, mostly through the US-Japan or US-Australia alliances. And Australia has been concerned with Japanese security through the lens of ANZUS Treaty, which covers the whole Pacific area.
Which treaty?
ANZUS Treaty. It's a US-Japan. It used to be like a US-Australia-New Zealand trilateral pact, but now it's a kind of bilateral treaty, and it covers whole Pacific area, including Japan, of course. And Japan, of course, thinks Australia is important because it's the closest alliance partner of the United States in the region. So no matter if you like it or not, despite their kind of a non-treaty relationship, Japan and Australia are supposed to collaborate through the US alliance relationship, and that's one element of the quasi-alliance, I think. But of course, the US alliance is not the only reason. When it comes to Japan's regional security policy, Australia has been always kind of important and most reliable partner. I think during the Cold War, Japan and Australia worked quite closely for the establishment of APEC, Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation. And also after the Cold War, Australia supported Japan's joining the peacekeeping operations in Cambodia, East Timor, and South Sudan. Like non-nuclear proliferation or disarmament, that's a good example. And when the US President Trump withdrew from the TPP in 2017, then it was kind of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull who tried to keep that framework and then establish CPTPP. So I would say that for many years, Japan and Australia have worked for what is called free and open and rules-based international order, in Asia Pacific or in the Pacific region. I think that's a fundamental of this kind of quasi-alliance relationship.
And it's not the only relationship Japan is building in the region now, in addition to the US alliance, of course, right? I mean, I can see a kind of network of institutions and friendships, if you like, developing. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. And would you characterize that the same way, sort of bilateral, but also part of a kind of an evolving network of alliances?
Yes, very much so, yes. But of course, for Japan, the importance of the alliance with the United States, that is critical. And the need for that has been increasing because of China's rise and because of threats from North Korea. So the degree to which Japan needs to rely on US security guarantee has been increasing, that's for sure. But at the same time, not everything can be done through the alliance with the United States. So Japan needs more partners, and Australia is very much a prime example of a sort of a country which could sort of add sort of additional layers for Japan's security and defense. So it is not about substituting the alliance with the United States. It is about complementing what Japan has with the United States.
There is clearly, certainly Japan always characterizes this as a growing security challenge in the region from China, but others as well. I think even Russia and Ukraine has woken up a lot of people in Japan to broader security challenges. At the same time, even if it's not making up for or replacing the US alliance, there's also a sense of relative, at least, decline for the US. Is that the case? I mean, the balance of new challenges, but also kind of a decline in the old system? How would you characterize it?
Well, you could probably say so, especially since the Trump administration in the US. But I don't think neither Japan nor Australia fundamentally lost their trust of America. Instead, the US has been deepening its engagement with Indo-Pacific, even under the Trump administration. It was Trump administration which created the so-called free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. And also they tried to work hard for the, bolstering the Quad or that.
Mhm.
So I think rather than replacing the U.S. role, as you mentioned, Japan and Australia have tried to encourage the continuous U.S. strategic presence in the region through assuming greater burden sharing, in regional order building in this part of the world, I think. So
Right.
that could be a correct description.
All right, and we've mentioned this evolving kind of network and new relationships, but there's also new institutions that are part of this. For example, the Quad, right? The four countries: Japan, Australia, and India, and the United States. There's AUKUS, right, which involves the UK developing new submarines. Australia is involved in these new institutions as well. From the Australian point of view, what is the goal, the benefit of participating in this new kind of architecture that's evolving?
Okay, so Quad and AUKUS are two different frameworks, although they actually share common purpose, which is to maintain the strategic supremacy over China. And Quad is mainly focusing on, at least for now, like non-military security issues. So this is a security framework, but non-military issues such as environmental security, economic security, and health security. And there are actually many frameworks, in the region for discussing those issues, but few of them are joined by India, and that makes Quad really important, especially for Australia, because just having strong partnership with India is kind of one of top priorities for Australia right now. So I think that's the reason why Quad gained so-called bipartisan support in Australia, unlike 10 or 20 years ago when Australia unilaterally withdrew from Quad, when Prime Minister Abe proposed it in 2007. So that's really important for for Australia. And AUKUS is more kind of substantial and military related framework. And AUKUS has two pillars. One is to provide nuclear subs to Australia. The other is to promote some advanced technology cooperation, such as AI, unmanned vehicles, and cyberspace, and so on. And I think the success of AUKUS will determine the future of Australia's strategic landscape, or to exaggerate Australia's destiny. Because for example, nuclear subs, it's quite important to enhance Australia's deterrence capabilities, especially in the maritime domain. Whereas advanced technology such as AI, unmanned vehicles, unmanned ships, unmanned aircraft, and they are really important because Australia now suffers from the so-called manpower shortage, especially in its military. So that's the reason why Australia has invested so much money and effort for the success of this AUKUS partnership. I think it's a kind of national business for Australia right now.
And of course, there is discussion about whether Japan should participate in AUKUS and to what degree.
Well, it depends on what you mean by participate. But if you mean like Japan's being a full membership of AUKUS, then the answer might be no, of course. And that not only because of lack of security clearance, but also because of lack of experience or skills, languages, and all those kinds of issues, especially for Japan's domestic defense industry, has been focusing on domestic market rather than international cooperation. And what AUKUS aims at is a kind of integration of a defense industrial base, which means that they're going to integrate everything like resources, manpower, technologies, or even supply chains and so on, so that they can more effectively, develop defense equipment or encourage innovation between three countries. So it's a very highly dense and exclusive network among three allies. And I can hardly imagine that Japan's domestic industry can jump into such a framework directly, at least for now, which doesn't necessarily mean that Japan cannot cooperate with AUKUS. Of course, well, there are some areas such as hypersonics, AI, and unmanned vehicles again, where Japan and AUKUS partners can cooperate more. So rather than being a full member of AUKUS, I think Japan can cooperate with AUKUS members in specific areas in those advanced technology cooperation. And that's what I call like a AUKUS plus approach rather than being a JAUKUS.
Does that make sense to you, Professor
Yes,
Tsuruoka?
I fully agree to what Dr. Satake said, because the AUKUS countries are not really talking about Japan's participation or any other country's participation. They are talking about cooperation, possible cooperation on specific projects. And but as for specific cooperation on specific projects as well, there are very tall hurdles for Japan. So for example, on Pillar 2 on advanced defense technologies, Australia and the UK both needed to change their own export control measures. So the requirement is really high.
Right.
So the information security and export control and these other areas. So Australians actually have been really frustrated about the way in which Americans deal with Australia, because the American export control standard is really, really high and really strict.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
taking
Japan
into
has
account,
even more to go. Is that what you're saying? If they wanted to participate,
yeah,
I
because
see.
Australia has
Mhm.
been part of Five Eyes, the
Right.
intelligence network for many decades, and but that was not enough for Australia to do AUKUS. So the hurdle is really high. So, but it's up to AUKUS countries, because if they really want to cooperate with Japan or Korea and other countries, then they need to think about how to deal with those issues, export control, information security. But if the hurdle is too high, then it would make it impossible for AUKUS countries to cooperate with others.
But you're suggesting that they are issues that Japan has to deal with one way or the other, regardless of the exact degree of its participation.
Assuming that Japan can find some areas where
Right.
it is in Japan's interest to cooperate with AUKUS, then Japan needs to be ready to cooperate with AUKUS. But I think it's very much up to Japan whether Japan really wants to cooperate with AUKUS or not.